But here's a question for you. Did the United States land on the moon? Just drop it in the comment right now. Just let us know in the comments field here. Did the United States land on the moon? I already see hundreds of people saying no. Seems like an easy thing to prove, right? We know the landing site. We know exactly where they apparently landed, right? Show us the landing sites. Show us the evidence. And yet the former head of Russia's space agency and certain Russian academics can't seem to find any evidence at all that the United States actually landed on the moon, of Dmitry Rogozin. And he worked at Russia's version of NASA. Not only did he work there, he ran it. That about 10 years ago, while he was the head of the agency, he went on a bit of a spirit quest. He was trying to understand something that didn't make a lot of sense to him. You see, he was trying to understand how Soviet cosmonauts did multi-day expeditions in order to land on the moon, but when they returned, they could barely stand on their feet at all, almost like they were handicapped. They had to undergo very long recovery times. And he couldn't understand then how the Americans emerged from the lunar modules, looking like they had just stayed at the Four Seasons. It didn't make any sense to him. You see these videos of them, the lunar modules landing in the ocean, and they get out, and they looked like, they had just stayed at a Four Seasons.
Is that Rusky? People used to call them Ruskies. We did when we were kids. So he's suggesting that these men weren't being entirely honest.
Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure.
I think he would have mentioned the moon in the first sentence, but he says it was an adventure. There you go. Not necessarily lying about that. Would be an adventure. Do what these guys did. Probably more of an adventure than they go to the moon.
It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July.
There you go. He's not even talking about July when they supposedly went. He's saying, no, I'm talking about another time, this adventure.
But rather one that took place in the last decade.
He could be hinting at Gus Grissom in there, because that happened in the last decade.
We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding.
Good buzz on the left. All these three guys fearing for their lives. Like when you watch this, you really start to feel sorry for them. They sort of went in and they're probably going to go. And then they got announced to them, oh, look, it's too hard, but, we're still going to fake it. And they're on big money. Gus Grissom got killed. They're going, oh, shit, we're going to have to keep going with this. And here they are at the press conference. If you piece it all together, these guys were just shitting themselves for their lives. Neil Armstrong hardly ever gave any interviews after this. He became a recluse. Remember they said he became very religious or something. And he was the main guy. So Collins and Aldrin, well, they weren't the first men on the moon, so there wasn't as much pressure on them. Oh, look at them. Jeez. It breaks your heart that they had to live their entire lives as liars. Buzz was actually given a few hints in the last decade or so. Maybe trying to redeem himself. Because this, to this day, is the biggest lie ever told. And now the Ruskies are starting to pull a rug out from under them. What? Oh, I feel sorry for these guys, but it's going to be absolutely hilarious. And no Americans even believe they went. How can they keep this thing going? Because they have big plans. Maybe they reckon they're going to go again. Just recently they announced those astronauts are going. Remember they spoke to Biden. Biden wanted to meet their kids. It's all above board. And rather than the comical scenes from the moon buggy, I love that. That was fantastic. They're going to have CGI and really high-tech stuff to fake it this time. A lot harder to prove. They'd have all the shadows lined up and they'd make sure that, you can't pick this apart because it'd be just so perfect. Well, the Russians maybe decide they're going to pull the rug out from under them. But the future scares they got going. Oh, this is hilarious. We're going to sit back and enjoy this. Put up the ante in the war, though. The Russians taking a bit of a risk. But the Americans really want to shut them up. They made a gentleman's agreement.